And so half of the kids who needed Boys Town the most were kicked out, and the kids who made Boys Town look good got to stay. So I was put on Zoom on Zoom. I was on Zoom, I was the poster child. Great. Went to Cornell, got a scholarship, wrote about mind exploded, and other things began to explode. It was like all the wounds that had been put on ice, because they kept you busy. See, if you stay busy, you don't have to heal. Just stay busy, do things. I'm not saying this is anybody's fault. I think that's pretty much what the mindset was back then. It's the past, let go of the past, you're in the present, be happy, you know. There's no such thing as a deep psychological wound that's, you know, gonna come up and haunt you. And let me tell you, man, woo! As soon as I got to Cornell, and as soon as I got into a relationship with a girl or a woman who was going to extend feelings of warmth and kindness to me, that began to thaw me out. As I began to thaw out, what was it that I began to feel? Pain. I was listening to Amanda talk about the trauma. You know, don't be surprised if as a result of loving a child or being tender to a child who really is coming into trauma, the kind of trauma that I'm referring to, don't be surprised if the way that they respond to you that tells you that you're on track is that they pick up the desk and throw it at you. How are you supposed to deal with that? But that's where I was. Now this is me doing great at school, but like realizing, whoa, I got some serious issues, but not really being able to admit it. So that's just a little taste. I hope I qualified enough to let you know that I understand that territory. And then I went into education, and I had enough of an understanding to know that I wanted to I understood something about stories and storytelling. And I understood enough to know, even before I really started going to a therapist, I understood that if I opened my big mouth and started telling my stories, somehow things got better. I didn't exactly know how, but I was one of those, you know me by now, you know. And I could do that. And people could hear and they would go, whoa, 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 he's laying down. Does he even realize what he's talking about? No, I had no idea what I'm talking about. But at least I could say what I was talking about, right? Or at least I could say what my experience was, even though I didn't know what it meant. And so storytelling. Well, I got into public education on this curriculum based on oral history, personal narrative, and storytelling. And I began to realize, when I did this one-man show as an actor, as a playwright, I was acting and playwriting. That was a powerful way to hide out from a lot of my stuff as well. Hell, I could go on stage and act out on my wound, and people would be saying, damn, you're an amazing actor, you know, right? But I wasn't becoming a movie star, so what the hell? Why not go into public education? and so I wrote a curriculum based on oral history, personal narrative, and storytelling, because that's what I knew about, and I knew that would work. And everybody said, you're never going to get a job in the DOE, Barnaby. They don't hire drama performing arts licensed instructors. You're never going to get a job. So I went and lived up in Sharon, Connecticut for a year, just read tons of books, right? And that was great to live in Sharon. I could isolate, right? And I wrote my own curriculum, and I called up some superintendent who I found out in the phone book, and I said, wow, I've heard about your work. I've heard you're a great educational leader. I hope someday to work in education. And, you know, I had done this play that, you know, had gotten some attention in Newsweek, so, you know, I had some cachet. And, ooh, I'd love to get your insights on my curriculum. Can I show it to you? And he's like, yeah, come on in. So I bring my curriculum, he looks at it, oral history, personal narrative, storytelling. He says, this is good. You want to teach this? And I said, yeah, I'd love to teach it with your guidance and mentorship. Yeah. Because listen, people are telling me, you're never going to get a job in the DOE. And he says, he's looking at me and, you know, I'm cleaned up, I'm in a suit, so I look like maybe I went to Cornell. And I did go to Cornell, but I sure as hell don't look then like I've grown up for 8 years in institutionalized youth care at a place where Charles Manson lived for 3 days and then ran away from it. I'm telling you the truth, by the way. Read Helter Skelter, it's there. So he says, I suppose you want to work at Stuyvesant High School. That's one of the upper-end high schools, you know, because I'm presenting myself very well, you know. And I said, no, I'd like to work with the kids who nobody else wants to work with. And he went, ha ha ha, remember? Ha ha ha, remember? Ha ha, you know? Good, I had the ha ha with this guy. And then he said, where'd you work at Rikers Island? At the time I lived in Jackson Heights, which is right next to Rikers Island. And that's when I said, aha! And I said, I'd love to work at Rikers Island. And then he said, great. And that day, I was hired by the New York City Department of Education, and the next day, I was reporting to Rikers Island. And guess how I reported to Rikers Island? A teacher drove to my apartment who had one of those placards that allows you to drive onto that prison. And so I had a chauffeur taking me to work every morning at Rikers Island. And there you have the ah. Now, Robert Coles from Harvard University, who's worked a lot with children in crisis, who knows a lot about children in traumatic, systemically traumatic situations, began to get interested in the work that I was doing. And I was in therapy now, so I was healing on the Upper West Side. There was some big fancy building where twice a week from 4 to 5 you could hear howling throughout a whole hallway. That was me healing. Finally having an honest reaction to the incredible pain that I was in. It was just pain, physical, psychic. You know, I needed to howl and cry and curse. This dude let me lay on his couch and do that. I knew that whole building could hear me. I said, somebody's going to come and arrest me, man, or arrest you. And he said, no. And then when I started working at Rikers, I'm practicing mindfulness and I'm having these realizations about myself, but I'm actually sitting, as I said the other day, I'm sitting with black and brown little girls. And all of a sudden this life I've been through is a powerful reference point. And their lives, to me, are familiar. More familiar than any of the kids I knew at Cornell. A bunch of rich kids from Roslyn Heights, New York. I didn't know what the hell I had in common with those people. But I'm feeling like I'm more related to these predominantly black girls at Rikers Island than to anybody else in my life. And I'm practicing this mindfulness. I'm not talking to them about mindfulness. Like I said, I'm practicing mindfulness to keep my job. Because all of a sudden I'm getting benefits. I can see the shrink, I can get a dentist, all that stuff. But I'm looking at my family. And I didn't say this yesterday when we were talking about it. But at one point, I told you about the girl who came in with the mittens on her hands. She was the Minister of Defense in the Bloodettes. She was the leader of this cohort of girls who, and then eventually it became the women too. At one point I had my students were 16 to 65 years old. For 3 years, I'd go there, I'd go home. Sometimes I'd just sob in my bed. And then I'd be like, I can't wait to get back to that place. There's something I have to get back to. There's something that I'm getting. I'm getting some kind of a healing. Some kind of a wound is getting healed. That's all I know. I'm going there creating these situations where we can read a paragraph from a novel. They're not going to read a whole goddamn novel, but they'll read a paragraph, and then it's like, do you identify with that? Yeah, I identify with that, and yeah, I identify with you. And they're seeing, because I'm practicing mindfulness, that I'm not spinning off into all my bias and all my stories that I'm making about who they must be, because we learn in mindfulness to notice the thought and come back and pay attention to the thing in the moment. And so they're seeing me having this authentic, you know what I'm saying? But that authentic experience in and of itself, that thing is healing the hell out of all of us in that room. In a prison? Is that where we have to be? And it's happening. I'm getting offers like, would you like to be a principal? Would you like to? No. And finally, this young girl looks at me and she calls me out. She shuts me up. And maybe this is the only thing it needs to be about. I wanted to talk about Joan Halifax's The Fruitful Darkness. Because I think there's something there where Joan Halifax talks about healing the personal wound so that you can go out and heal the world wound. And let's not kid about it. There's a very simple piece of this mindfulness thing that is about healing. And learning might be about healing, by the way. Physician, heal thyself. But she looks at me and she goes, what's wrong with you, mister? And I'm like, what do you mean? Like she's got me. You know what I'm saying? These kids are not stupid. What's wrong with you? Like, what do you mean? Why are you here? What are you doing here? And I have enough of that whole thing in me where if I feel challenged, listen guys, like I said, my amygdala still kicks in every now and then. I'm no kind of enlightened master. Like I said, I'm practicing this mindfulness to keep my job, keep my marriage, keep my sanity. You know, let somebody else be the enlightened master. That's cool. But now she's getting me a little upset because she's telling me the truth. And so she's forcing me to give her an answer. And I don't know what the answer is. And now the other girls are saying, yeah, what are you doing here? Why would you be here? Why would you come and be in this nasty place with us? And I said, because right now, as I look at you and I talk to you, and I'm here and I'm practicing and I'm learning in this moment, I've been through all my life, and I know you identify with me and I identify with you, that in this very moment right now, I can feel all this shit in me falling away, and I feel these prison walls falling away, and I look in your eyes and I feel absolutely, totally like this is where I'm supposed to be. And she looked at me, she stood there like, and I was just that passionate, crazy. They'd go, oh, mister, he's spinning off, you know. And I'd be like that, and she looked at me and she said, I got it. You know? And that's when I realized that there's something about this mindfulness that isn't necessarily just only about healing, or isn't just necessarily about being free. It also has something to do with liberation. My liberation. That young lady's liberation. And that this trauma, this vicious pain, if we can stay with it and help each other to stay with it and to stay with the pain of others, and use this practice of mindfulness to notice when we're triggered, right? To notice when we're going into the storyline. Notice that, and like touching a bubble with a feather, gently, compassionately guide ourselves back to being in the moment with this person. I think there's something in there that's about liberation. And for me to be liberated from the horrors of trauma, whew, I can't tell you. I mean, I have a wife. I have a son. I have a job. I still wake up somewhat paranoid and scared in the morning and need to have my first cup of coffee and do things. Put me in the wrong place with the wrong person, I can get triggered. I imagine you may have seen me stand up in maybe some big meeting when I had my suit on and maybe confront some power holder in a way that my boss had wished I had rephrased. That still happens. I have to, look, if I want to keep on going, I'm going to have to live with the reality of where I come from. And I cannot apologize for that. I cannot hide that. I have to stand in that wound. And that wound begins to transform itself. It's nothing to be ashamed of. In fact, the more I can grow out from that wound through the story, which is a kind of container, is a kind of balm in Gilead, is a kind of water from an ancient well, the telling of one story, I can move out from my story. It's not all about me anymore. I can move out from my story into your story, and your story, and your story, and your story. Right? This is why I think that trauma can be a fruitful wound, and that we can help our kids to stop being ashamed about the pain they're in, to stop being afraid of the pain they're in. Because it's like Amanda said earlier, you know, it's lucky if our kids come to us stressed, or if our teachers are stressed, or if we can have a handle on stress. But right now, people are traumatized. The kids are traumatized, the teachers are traumatized, and it's time for us to teach. So we're going to have to find a way to make friends with the trauma, so that maybe we can transform the obstacle of that trauma into the path of a new way of being with each other. Because either we have forgotten how to be with each other, or we're being told we have to evolve to a new way of being with each other. And it's not about you have time, it's more about change or die. And if that makes you feel somewhat inconvenienced, I apologize. But I'm an educator in this country at this time. So this is what I see. And it's workable. It can be fruitful. Like I said yesterday, don't let that thing try to convince you that you're not the gem that you are. A public servant. Somebody's whistling like, time's up, Barnaby, because that's usually what, I have a buddy do that, but let's just say that's, yeah, man, people keep timers on me, man, let me tell you, because as I look, because now it begins to become about something else. See, educare and educere. Educare is this kind of molding of the student, I believe. Educere is when, because you're paying attention to me and being so generous to me right now, because I feel it. You know, but that's how the kids are going to feel when you do it to them. So you might as well get used to it with me. You know, but this is what it's going to look like, and this is what it's going to feel like. Because it's like it's new territory. I have a son who's having a life that I have no reference points for. It's scary, damn it. But it's worth it. And, you know, I get better at it. But your attention is drawing me out. You're drawing me out. That's the educare. That's the educator who teaches by drawing it out. We gotta draw it out now, man. We gotta draw it out, these kids. Because we're leaving them in a pretty shitty situation. We can take, it's not our fault, I'm not saying it's anybody's fault, but it's our responsibility. And here I am speaking to you, who I know you know this. What an honor to be here with you. You're getting something about this as an educator, and as, I don't know, man, it's intense. It's amazing to be with you. And that is a fruitful wound, because we might be a wounded nation. You know, we're a wounded nation. Don't mind, we're wounded. But it can be fruitful. It can be fruitful. So, I'm incredibly, my boss, Cheryl Watson Harris, says, to those to whom much is given, much is required. And I'm down with that. Find something larger than yourself that's worth getting out of bed for in the morning. You folks, this whole thing about mindfulness and education, I can get out of bed in the morning. Man, I'm ready. We have to help each other continue to be ready. Okay, I'm going to stop there, just because I can keep on going.